Hey guys, this is Jacob from Mr. Addiction, and we're doing another interview tonight. I have a guest. Her name is Rachel, and she is residing out of Virginia. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
All right, so we'll roll right into the first question. What would you say the different ways that addiction has impacted your life?
Mm. Um, well, definitely destroyed my entire life. Um, when I started going to college for medical assisting in my early 20s. I wanted to become an RN eventually, and I just figured I would start at the bottom and work my way towards the top. I got pregnant in 2007 while I was still attending college. Um, I almost finished all my college until, I couldn't anymore, until I had my child. Um, I was well into a marriage, 2 years into that. Everything was going great. And then something happened in my marriage. We ended up splitting up, and he ended up leaving the state. And I had to care for my special needs child for about 5 years by myself, and it became a struggle. And I ended up basically reconnecting with a person that I went to high school with. He had just gotten released from prison. I was not used to that kind of life. He was, tatted up, and he hung around people that, sold drugs, did drugs, whatever. And basically, we started out very small, and then we worked our way up. And by the time I was done, I had stolen $16,000 from my father. I was incarcerated for a year. Couldn't touch my daughter for close to 3 years. Lost everything I'd ever owned. I was homeless. I slept outside, slept in cars. Um, Pretty much it's taken everything away from me. Literally, I don't even have 1% custody of my child, and she's almost 16. So drugs, well, I'll just say heroin has taken everything away from me.
Yeah, and that's I appreciate what you're saying because it's something that escapes the public eye. Like I think a lot of people who don't struggle with drugs know that addiction can run your life, but to actually live it and to lose things is a different story, which kind of leads me to the next question. Could you describe what it's like to have the mental anguish of being addicted to drugs?
Mm. It's basically, it's fun until it's not fun anymore. It consumes your entire day. From the time you open your eyes, it's how am I going to get high? When am I going to get high? I need money to get high. It's all, your whole day revolves around it. And if you can't get it, your whole day is ruined. You will find any way to achieve getting your drugs. Even if you have to go steal a vehicle from some random stranger to go get it, you're going to do it because your brain is telling you you need to go get high. And if you don't, you're going to get sick. You're going to be sicker than you've ever been sicker in your life. You're going to sweat. You're going to throw up. You're going to be in the bathroom. You're going to feel like just absolute crap. So you better figure it out. It's only 6:30, so you got a little time, but you better figure it out. That whole mental aspect of obtaining drugs, the way it consumes your whole body, your brain. I mean, you don't think about anything else until you get what you want. And it's not even a want at that point. It's a need. It's an actual need. Because if you don't get it, you're going to want to hurt yourself by the time the sickness sets in.
Going along with that, just piques my interest in another question I have for you. Um, what would you say is what is withdrawing from drugs like for the person who's never experienced it?
Um, well, I know everyone's different. For me, and I have a high tolerance for pain. I've got a lot of tattoos. I mean, pain doesn't really bother me. But to actually go through withdrawals, it's more of a mental thing for me. Um, Once you start thinking about it and you know it's going to happen, your anxiety sets in. The anxiety of, I know I'm going to be sick. How bad is it going to be? How long is it going to be? And then you start to sweat. And I'm not just talking about, I'm perspiring. I mean, you're sweating to the point where you have to change your clothes constantly because you're sweating through all your clothes. And it could be 30 degrees outside and you're still sweating. And then your stomach hurts to the point where it's like, is my appendix going to burst? Or, that kind of pain where you might want to, just try not to think about it, but your mind is so consumed. So then your body just keeps going through it. And then you don't have an appetite. Can't really drink anything because you're just going to throw that up anyway. And then then you look crazy, and then you just, it's terrible. It's the worst thing. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I mean, literally, like, I wouldn't wish it on the devil himself. It's the worst thing I've ever been through, and I've been through it several times.
Yeah, and what role do you think trauma plays in addiction?
Oh, trauma is absolutely my number one because when I'm high, I don't think about it. Like, literally, I could be reliving the moment, seeing that person that it happened with, and I'll be completely fine. But when I'm sober and I have to think about it, all I want to think about is, oh my God, I need to escape this somehow mentally. So for me, using blocks out all that trauma. Like, I don't have my bad dreams anymore. I sleep fine. I don't have to think about, what I did to get my drugs, what I did while doing my drugs, what I did to people while I was high. All that trauma that comes with the addiction just feeds right back into it. You keep using to get rid of the trauma of you using. It's a vicious cycle and it just repeats itself every day.
Yeah, and along those lines, I know for me personally, and I feel like a lot of people I've met that struggle with drugs and alcohol, the dealing with those two demons of guilt and shame. How would you say guilt and shame plays a role in maybe you relapsing?
Well, I'll actually just say this because I just relapsed like 2 years ago and I was sober for almost 6 years. Um, and what made me relapse was I tried to go get some type of custody with my daughter. And, I had been clean for 6 years. I had a job. I even had a room set up for my daughter where I lived. And I was working a good job. Like, I thought I was good. I thought the judge was like, oh, of course you can have some type of custody, And I walked in there and I think because I am a recovering addict, she didn't want to listen to anything I had to say. As soon as she heard, that I was a drug user or had been a drug user, she didn't care what I had to say. It was like, oh, well, you're that mom. You gave up your kid for drugs, and which I didn't. And then that trauma that day, like literally, I was like, I can't deal with this. And then I started drinking. And then when the drinking didn't do it, I was like, I need more. I need something else to escape this trauma, to block out the pain, because I don't know how to cope with that mental pain. And then you start doing drugs, and then you feel guilty about doing the drugs because you're like, well, what was the point of that if I just got clean to get my daughter back and now I'm using drugs again? Now I'm a terrible mother again. So then you just keep getting high to just ignore that fact.
Yeah, and then this, like you said earlier, just the vicious cycle continues, and it goes
Yes,
on and
every
on and
day.
on. Yeah,
It's, I mean, you sometimes I'd wake up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I might have like a little bump left, and I'm like, okay, you're not sick yet, but a couple more hours, you can make it. Make that bump last a couple more hours. And the fact that I had to rationalize that in my head that should tell you everything. I mean, normal people shouldn't have to do that every day. You shouldn't have to sit there and open up a little lottery ticket and say, oh, well, I had this little bump saved, so I should be good. That's no way to live. It's awful.
it is. It's absolute slavery, and it's but I get it, and I'm with you in that. I know that pain of, even though like your life is falling apart. And
Yeah,
most people look at it and say, well, why would you keep doing the same thing that's causing that? But it's
right.
not that simple, right? It's
It's not.
yeah,
It's
I'm almost just as addicted as escaping my reality as I am the actual feeling of the drug.
exactly. It's all about not feeling. And for me, heroin was always that numbing effect of, even though a lot of people didn't know, I mean, I had used for several years before anyone knew. And it made me very numb. I had no emotion. People were like, are you okay? Like, you're dealing with a lot and you're not really acting like it's bothering you. Well, of course I'm not. I'm numb. And then you're like, you need to feel that numb feeling again. You need to not feel anything. So you just continue to use.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're just it's dead on, and I really appreciate the information. And I want to ask you a personal question that I think needs to be asked and talked about, but people really don't talk about it enough. What is it like to be a parent who struggles with addiction and have that affect your relationship with your child? What is that pain like?
Well, for me, it's embarrassing, I guess, because I feel like, I get on Facebook, I get on TikTok, I get on all these social medias, and I see, families living out normal lives. Single mothers have their kids all the time, and, single dads have kids too. It is what it is. But there have been like times where I haven't seen my kid for months, and it bothers me. But people are like, well, if it bothers you, then why don't you go see her? Because I'm sick and I don't want her to see me sick. I'd rather her see me well and spend actual time with me than look at me and me sitting there thinking about, oh, well, I have to go get high. Like, I can't spend time with my child because, oh my God, like, I just have to get high first. And literally, I did that for several years. I'd go visit my child, but I would be high, and my mom would be like, just get out. Like, she couldn't even look at me at some point. She was just like, if you're going to come over here, just try to be sober for 5 minutes. And I couldn't do it. So I was glad when I got locked up because I was sober in there and I got to see my kid, but I couldn't touch her. And that's like the worst thing for a parent ever, especially when you hear if she's sick. Like, she was in the hospital one time when I was incarcerated, and I couldn't talk to her. I couldn't see her. I didn't know how she was. It was like that anxiety. I felt like, wow, I am such a piece of crap. Like, I don't even know how my child is doing. And as a mother, you should want better for your kids. Like, when I had my child, I'm thinking, oh, I want to give my child the world. I want to take my kid on vacations. Like, I mean, my mom was a good mom. She was a stay-at-home mom for like the first 5 years, but she also had an addiction. I didn't know about it, but she had an addiction. My child knows I have an addiction. My child knows I left her. Like, literally, my mom would tell me, she would look out the window and be like, when's mommy coming back? My child should never have to worry about when her mom is going to come see her. And that's all she worries about. I couldn't imagine. Like, I couldn't imagine not seeing my mom for, I don't know, 6, 7 months, or never calling. Like, what kind of parent is that?
Yeah, I mean, it breaks my heart for everybody involved, and me being an addict myself. Like, I, you know, lean towards having compassion on, sadly towards the addict, if I'm honest, but towards the children too. And my father was an alcoholic, but not until later on in my life, and so. But it was heartbreaking to see my dad, this Superman that I believed in growing up, trash himself, and slur
Yeah.
his speech and fall down the steps and, curse at you at 3 in the morning, not realizing what time it is or what day it is.
Right.
So I'm just, I have a lot of compassion on you and on your daughter, and definitely be praying for you in that. And I just have one last question for you. Why do you think that death is not enough or doesn't scare us enough to stop using?
I think because we always think it can't happen to us. Like, for me, I have never overdosed. And I'm not saying that with any proudness. But I have lost a lot of friends. I'm going to say eight or nine in total. I've been to their funerals. I have missed funerals. I mean, I had to actually, a guy I was in a relationship with who was very abusive, he ended up overdosing, a couple years after we all got clean. And I went to his funeral, and I was very sober at the time. I was doing very well for myself. And, I hadn't seen him in years. We had no contact for various reasons. And I was thinking he was going to be cremated. And, I wasn't expecting to walk into a funeral home and see him laying there. And when I did, I lost it, because there he was. And here I was standing and still breathing. And that could have been me. And I literally headed the other way out of the funeral home, and I have never in my life, I fell to the ground and I screamed. Like, it had to sound terrifying probably. And I cried. I mean, cried like I have never cried before, because I saw myself in that coffin. And that day I knew, I said, if you ever use again, you're going to end up in there. And I went right back to using, and that never crossed my mind again, because I didn't care about it. I was so low at that point. I was just like, you know what? If it happens, it happens. And then I started hanging out with some people that literally live across the street, and I had to Narcan his girlfriend one night, and I looked at her after I Narcaned her, and she got mad at me for saving her life. So I stopped hanging around her. And then the guy that she was with, he ended up overdosing not long after that. And I didn't have Narcan, so I had to call 911. And that was scary. I mean, I don't know, the death rattle. That was the loudest death rattle I've ever heard in my life. And he was purple. And I just couldn't. I just knew I had to get sober after that, because I knew I was next.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head, right? We just don't think it's going to happen to us because we
Uh-uh.
numb our reality, and we
Yeah.
just we don't think, you're exactly right. We think if we're all honest, we think we're kind of special or immune, and that
Yeah.
happens to other people. But the numbers say it is going to happen to us. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
And for someone my age, me being 39, I don't exercise. I don't eat well. I mean, I'm not, I'm not a disgustingly, obese person or anything. I mean, but I don't take care of myself. And if that happens to me, I'm going to be alone. There's not going to be anybody to call. I'm going to be in a bed by myself, and my dad's going to have to find me. I'm not going to put my dad through that. I don't want my mom to go through that. She's already lost her husband, her father, and her brother this year. I can't do that to my mom. So I knew I had to get sober before the new year. And it won't easy. And I had a lot of medication to help. But I did it. Again.
yeah, and I think, when we were originally chatting, getting to know each other for the interview, I believe it was you that somebody had told you that if you take Suboxone, you're not sober. And for me, it's like whatever it takes. There's a difference between a doctor prescribing you a medication to help you from not using fentanyl or something that'll kill you, versus that mentality of well, don't use Suboxone and don't use anything, and
Right.
it's just
I know
ridiculous.
a lot of people are against Matt. They say it's not sobriety. They say it's just trading one drug for the next. But for me, this time around, I knew I couldn't detox by myself, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I had to seek help. Last time I had to do it by myself. I had to do it in jail, and I detoxed 5 days. And that's just when, I was on heroin. But this time around, I was doing straight fentanyl every day, like all day, every day. So my tolerance was so high. I mean, I'm already on 3 Suboxone strips now, and sometimes I'm thinking I might need another one. And they're saying 24 is max. Like, you shouldn't be taking more than 24 milligrams of Suboxone a day. And sometimes I'm like, I just need that little extra strip, but I don't take it. And everybody's like, well, can't you get high off that too? I don't get high off of it. It keeps me well.
Absolutely. Keeps you from detoxing so hard that you just give up,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, because for me, it gets to a certain point, like, okay, so I did try to detox by myself a couple months ago. And, the first 4 days I got through it, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe one more day I can push through. So, I hit that 5th day, and then that 6th day, it got worse. And I'm thinking, how is it getting worse? And I went 8 days, and I don't know why I went 8 days. I think because maybe I couldn't find anything, or maybe I didn't have the money. I don't know. But that 8th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go get something because I thought I was going to die. I hadn't eaten in 8 days. I mean, I had lost so much weight. People were like, you look so skinny right now. And I'm like, yeah, because I haven't eaten in 8 days because I've been detoxing. And they're like, oh. That's not something they want to hear, but I mean, I was being honest.
That's the one of the most effective diets, the detox diet.
Yes, definitely. Because if you're not sweating it out, you're going to throw it up, or you're just not going to eat.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I really appreciate it. I think this has been very informative, and your story and your experience, despite what anyone believes, the numbers show that it saves lives, and so I just appreciate you being honest and transparent, and we'll definitely be checking in with you, tracking your story, seeing how you're doing. And I just wanted to say, guys, follow us online, not just so we can feel better about ourselves, but follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. and anywhere else, so we can raise awareness about the fentanyl epidemic and also getting experience from those who live it in addiction. And so just help us out by following us. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and contact me at Mr. Addiction if you guys are struggling or need resources.